Good morning. I'm Dick Wagner, and with me behind the curtain up in Atlanta is Bill Giannone. Welcome to the CREST webinar that we do every week, but on the fourth Tuesday of the month, we do a Q&A based on some of the hot questions that were sent during the month or were asked during the month in working with our clients. So without further ado, I'm going to move to the first question, and that is, what should I do differently to market in the post-pandemic world? The reality is that in the past, we worked with insurance agents and plumbers and lots of different client types, but we generally either met them at their office if they were a plumber and they had a brick and mortar, or the insurance agent certainly at their office. And, you know, I'm hearing periodically, and I just heard yesterday, as a matter of fact, one of my clients has found that of her list of 75 insurance agents that she used to visit in a month, only about 12 or 13 of them actually have an office anymore, or they are about a dozen of them are the only ones that are still in an office, and some of them won't even let you in. So the question was, you know, how do I do it differently? How do I reach all of these agents who are still capable of giving us referral jobs, but I can't get to talk to them? And so there was the discussion about, well, maybe we need to do monthly or weekly or every 2-week newsletters. Maybe we need to capture their email address wherever possible. Ideally, we should capture their cell phone number. And I realize not all the insurance agents are going to be willing to share their cell number, but if we ask them maybe in a newsletter via email to share their cell phone number so we can send them a text and acknowledge maybe their anniversary date, they might be more willing to offer their cell phone. Or if we say, I'd like to send you a personal text video, but I need your cell phone number, they might be more willing to provide you with their cell phone number. But phone calls, you know, we've gotten away because of the harassment that we've all taken from telemarketers calling us, blowing up our phones. We're sick and tired of that. But I believe that with a valid reason to call, we've got to reinstitute the phone calling process. We got away from phone calling, and if we think we can do passive marketing by just sending emails, we're wrong. It isn't going to work. I don't care how good you are at sending out an email. Nationally, still only 14 or 15% of emails are opened. That's 14 out of 100 emails are open. So it's not a good process. But Zoom calls, trying to connect with maybe all of the agents on a Zoom call really works. I have many marketers that I work with every single week that do regular Zoom calls, and they strive to do one Zoom call a day with one insurance office, or maybe 4 or as many as 5 Zoom calls a week with insurance agents or insurance offices. And Zoom calls are a great way to be in front of the client, especially like I have a client in New York who just simply can't get into the offices. They won't let her in. They won't let her in with a mask. Some of them demand to see their vaccination card, but in general, she can only see about 10% of the agents she used to visit. And so she has had a lot of great success with Zoom because just like I can see some of you on this call, I know what you're doing. I know your environment. I can see your facial expressions. And so Zoom calls really help with that. You need to do social media posts. You need to try and invite all of those agents and all of those plumbers to connect with you on maybe such platforms as Facebook, especially. But you have to be careful not to make that salesy post. Nobody wants to see a post about how great you are at fire, flood, smoke, water damage. Nobody wants to see a salesy post about, oh, it's raining today. If your house floods, call me. Those are garbage type posts. They serve no purpose except to enhance and build your ego. They don't do anything for your client. You have to post non-salesy posts. I have one client who is just determined that when they post something, they always include a picture, but within the picture, they include a logo of their company. Their company logo is embedded in the photo. And that is also obnoxiously salesy. Please don't do that. I highly recommend that wherever possible, if you can't visit them at their office, if they don't have an office anymore, meet them for coffee or take them to lunch. Do text messaging if you can get their cell phone number. Do email newsletters. And last but not least, do bulky email. Bulky email is where you maybe spend $5 and you spend $1 at Dollar Tree and you buy a $1 calculator and you send them a calculator saying, do your policies just not add up? We can help. Give me a call or I'll follow up with you next week. And send that as a priority mail package and spend what is it, $6 plus $1. That's that's less than $10. You'll spend that much driving to their office in the half an hour that you're going to burn trying to get in front of them, only then to find out you can't get in front of them. So sometimes bulky mail or 3D mail really works well. So bottom line, if you can't get in front of them, think outside of the box and try to come up with something else that's going to reach them in a slightly different way. Certainly try your darndest to engage them on Facebook and LinkedIn and even Instagram. As you know, LinkedIn is a brilliant business marketing relationship connection for you and your personal attempt to build that relationship. The other thing that I want to remind you about, and I have the word right on the screen here, I have the word different or differently. If you aren't engaged in differentiation, if you aren't doing it differently than every other marketer that you're working with, or excuse me, every other insurance agent or every other plumber or every other client that you're calling on, if you're not doing it differently, then you're doing it the same. and you're doing it the same as every other one of your competitors. And if you're going to do it the same as all of them, you don't have anything unique or unusual, and you're not going to stand out. A recent survey by Cleaning and Maintenance magazine found that 97% of customers, the people you're calling on, expect you to actively demonstrate that you and your company are practicing safe and healthy processes by even having little things like hand sanitizer locations and or stations. And another 91% said dramatically increased disinfection and sanitation processes are very critical. So in the post-pandemic world, the strategy you use to market, it better be different. Bill?
Thanks, Dick. Good morning, and good morning, everyone. This question came in, actually 3 or 4 different of our members have asked me this over the last month or so, and I thought it was very, very topical. How can I deal with the new reality of more self-paid jobs? This is coming about because of 2 things that are happening in our industry, both of which are going to negatively affect our ability to run jobs through a client's insurance company and expect payment that way. The first is that there are rising premiums. So every single time a client feels like their insurance company is raising their premiums, the answer to that is, well, if you have a claim, it's going to be even worse. So people don't want to necessarily file a claim. The second reality that's happening along with higher premiums is higher deductibles. In many parts of the country, they're actually going to what we know as percentage deductibles. If the value of your home is $500,000 and you've got a 2% deductible, now you're on the hook for $10,000. That used to be reserved only for what I would call the high risk areas, the areas where hurricanes hit a lot, or vacation home areas, flooding areas, things like that. You're starting to see that now all throughout the country. But those 2 things end up becoming a reality because, generally speaking, in the country, the average non-program water loss is about $4,200 to $4,600. So once we start seeing 5,000 deductibles or percentage deductibles, a lot of times the client doesn't want to necessarily run it through insurance. It presents a little bit of a trick for us because we all know that the service we provide is a valuable service. And for most of us, we probably feel like we're undercharging for what we're getting, especially if we're continuing to use programs like Xactimate to help create our invoices. So how do we combat the fact that we think we're charging very little, but ultimately the client thinks that their price is ridiculous, and can we work something out with them is always what you hear. This all starts at the very beginning, honestly. You can't expect to get through a job at the end, submit your invoice, and then deal with the client sticker shock. And we know what sticker shock is because when we go to buy a vehicle, we already know what the sticker looks like. And then we know it's part of a game. And many of us do this haggling thing in all aspects of our life. But for any kind of major purchases, it is a mindset. Maybe not right this second in the housing industry, but even when we're buying houses, we'll submit an offer and somebody else will come back to us and say, oh, I'll counter. And it's a back and forth. When we go to a doctor's office, we might know that our different treatments are going to cost a lot of money, but we say, well, I'm self-insured or I'm not insured for this. What would be my price? And we expect that there's a lower price than what's listed. Well, that's what clients are going to get as well, unless we set the tone up front. And the best way to set the tone up front is to make sure that your first responder, whoever it is that is out there trying to sell and get that work off signed, make sure that they're setting the groundwork for what's to come. The single worst thing that I can hear a first responder tell a homeowner is this phrase: we see this all the time, it's no big deal. If your first responder is using terms like that, they might be using it for the right reasons. They might be using it because they want to put the homeowner at ease and they want to build some trust and they want to make sure the homeowner is going to sign with them. So trying to put the homeowner at ease by saying, oh, this is no big deal, we see this all the time, it actually is creating a huge problem at the end. Because I don't know about you guys, but if I hear the words, it's no big deal, I associated that with it's no high price. Okay. I would much prefer your homeowner say, excuse me, your first responder say to the homeowner, I'm really glad you called us. This is a big deal and we'll be able to help you. Even if they use the words, we see this all the time, still say, this is a big deal. You know, we go to a cardiologist if we have problems with our heart, they're an expert. We don't expect to pay them $20 an hour for their service. They are an expert. We also know that if they spend 10, 20 minutes with us, we still might get a $5,000 bill from them, but we're paying them for their expertise. They usually are not going to use the phrase, this is no big deal. They're usually going to use the phrases, oh, I see this all the time. This is something we can address, but they don't diminish their value. Remember, that's what we have to do at the very start of a job. We have to establish our value. For a lot of our work, we're being brought in by a plumber. Plumbers have a value that is associated with their services. But the reality, guys, is that most homeowners associate the value of a plumber with being hundreds of dollars, unless it's a full bathroom remodel. But if they're switching out the water heater, the biggest ticket in there is the price of the water heater itself. Their labor is defined as hundreds of dollars. So we're going to be associated with that same service professional. We have to then build the case that, no, we've got years of training, if not decades of training. We invest an incredible amount of money in training and education. We are experts at what we do. We invest hundreds of thousands of dollars into our equipment, similar to an MRI. Those machines cost an incredible amount of money. So the doctors charge a high price for the use of that equipment every time we go get an MRI done. That's what our equipment is doing as well. It's not just a fan, it's professional water damage equipment that we've had to expend money for. So the value of our services, the client should know that it's in the thousands of dollars at the start. We need to make sure we're setting that so that when we finally come around to that quote unquote self-pay price, we don't have to compromise that price and we can say 42 or 4,600 and the client understands that's the going rate. Now, from a strictly business standpoint, and again, for those of you who don't know too much about my background, I come from Wall Street. So I tend to look at everything from a nuts and bolts, dollars and cents perspective. If we're going to say that an insurance job is $4,600 and it usually takes us anywhere from 45 to 60 days to collect that money, what's the value of getting that money, at the end of the job in 4 days? We can apply what I would call an early pay discount or a quick pay discount. I wouldn't necessarily call it a self-pay discount because now we're bordering on what some people could deem as insurance fraud, creating two different prices for the same service. I'd like to leave the price there, but I would call it a quick pay discount of maybe 10%. If you wanted to do that, the homeowner thinks now they're getting some value, but they're still not thinking that what you're providing to them is something that's in the hundreds of dollars. It's really in the thousands of dollars. To me, it all starts up front. You can't walk in there, say, no big deal, walk around the building, spend 10, 15 minutes, and then tell the customer, oh, this is going to be 6,200. They're going to freak out. You need to lay the
I'm going to guess.
all of that makes sense. So let's make sure we stay on top of that at the very beginning. Hope that helps you out. Thanks, Dick.
No problem, Bill. We lost your voice for about 15 seconds. So that last 15 or 20 seconds, we didn't have you on speaker.
Okay, I apologize. It may be something with the internet here in Atlanta, but I will continue to try to march through. Hopefully you'll hear the rest of me.
No worries. We we lose the internet here. We lost it for 4 hours, 5 hours yesterday. So I'm crossing my fingers in hopes that we don't lose it again today. So next question. This was part of a two-part question, and we were talking about the three most common plumber types. But in the course of that conversation, my marketer asked me or said to me, one of the things that I experienced, and she was a brand new marketer with me. She's only been with the company for like 3 weeks. So she was out calling on plumbers, and and they don't have a lot of competition in the market. One of the things she was doing was offering them a plumber referral fee, a $250 referral fee. And with the $250, so many of the plumbers that she was talking with said, well, I'm not going to fill out a W-9. I'm not going to pay tax on that referral fee. So simply, I'm just not interested. I'm not going to fill out the paperwork. You're not going to get it from me. So you can keep your $250. That's kind of like, cutting off your nose to spite your face. It's like, and I said to that marketer, I said, next time that happens, say, are you okay if I give you $250? Just that pure question. And if they say, well, hell yeah, then say, how about if I ask for $30 of it back? You get to keep 200, 210, 220 bucks. Are you okay with that? Are you okay with letting me keep 30 if you get 210 or 220? And it was like the light bulb came on, because what plumber there are some, they're so ignorant that they don't want to complete a W-9 to get a 1099 at the end of the year for what they've been paid in referral fees. And interestingly enough, if it's only a couple referral fees a year, that doesn't even come up to the $600 the federal government establishes as the minimum. But even if it's $1,000 and you've got to pay a couple $100 in tax on $1,000 in referral fees, why would I not want to pay $200 to get 1,000? There's no more logic to it than that. I mean, that's just incredibly blind, ignorant plumbers. And when you have plumbers like that, you've got to call them out on it. You've got to address that issue head on, not beat around the bush, not apologize. It's the law. You can't beat around that bush. You can't avoid it. And so give me $1,000 any day of the week, and I'll give you a W-9, and I'll set aside, out of that $1,000, I'll set aside a couple $100 to address the taxes that I'm going to have at the end of the year. And the crazy part about it is they're getting a paycheck every week, and taxes are being withheld every week. And with taxes being held, if taxes are being withheld to the tune of maybe $5,000 a year, that $200 that they owe in taxes on their plumbing referral money comes out of the $5,000. So they, again, don't really experience that. But I do want to take just a moment to tell you about three common types of plumbers. First type is the one-man band. We call them the Chuck in a truck or a man with a van. They may have a helper, but they usually, their office is their kitchen table. Their shop is their garage or their outbuilding on their own property. And even more so is that their cell phone number is their main business line. So almost all of the man and a van or Chuck in a truck plumbers, their point of contact is a cell phone, and it's always on their hip. So you can reach those guys pretty easily. And then you're going to run into that small shop that may have two or three or four or five or six plumbers on staff. They probably have some sort of a warehouse or shop, but it may or may not be manned. It might not have a customer service or receptionist person answering the phone. So you're again really going to engage those similar to the Chuck in a trucks. You're going to also find them at the supply houses and the Lowe's and the Home Depots. And the third type is what we refer to as the big boys. In Atlanta, in Miami, in Cleveland, in many other markets, there are big boys. And these are guys that have 25, 30, 35, 40 trucks on the road. And they have a huge shop, and it's manned by dispatchers, and it's a brick and mortar location. And those are perfect for taking in breakfast periodically and having a meeting at the breakfast time at 7 a.m. with those guys and being able to talk with them and introduce them to your referral program and encourage all of them, and certainly some of them will embrace your referral program and want to be a referral partner. So those are your three most common plumber types, and you can hit the W-9 issue head on with the simple explanation. If I give you $250 cash, two $100 bills and a $50 bill, will you give me $50 back? Every single one of them will say, yep, I most certainly will. Billy?
Thank you, Dick. What's the difference between positive incentive and negative incentive? I used that term in one of my conversations with an owner this past week, and this was the first question that he asked. So I thought maybe it does make sense. I kind of take it for granted that it seems pretty self-evident, but I will run through it real quickly just for those of you who may or may not be aware. Positive incentive is obviously things like a commission or a bonus structure. You do this, you'll get that. Negative incentive, think of it like when you're a kid, you better do your homework or else. Anytime that you could infer the term or else, I call that negative incentive. If you're causing people to act for you in your company out of fear, I don't like that. I don't think that that works well in a corporate environment. I don't think it's the right message you want to send. I think you want to promote positivity within the company. You want people to do things for positive reasons. So, obviously we should be assessing our personnel throughout the year. We should be having meetings every 6 months at least to do reviews on people's pluses and minuses within the company. We have to make sure we're brutally honest with them as well. We're not doing them any favors by not addressing any areas of concern. But when it comes time to incentivizing people, I think we need to make sure that we stay away from, well, if you don't do this, then this is going to happen. Why would we even want to put it into their head that they wouldn't do something? Let's kind of leave that out there, that the expectation is they will do it, and focus all of our efforts on what will happen when they do it, not if they don't do it. Really simple things like your crews, getting your crews to make sure that their vehicles are in what we'll call fire ready condition. If you got a call at 2 a.m, can they show up and just take the truck as is, or are they going to have to scramble to clean up the back of it? That's a big thing in our industry. Guys come home, they're tired. Maybe it's 7, 8 o'clock. They just got off a job that ran a little late. And they're like, oh, I'll just leave the truck till the morning. Negative incentive would be, well, if I investigate and check your vehicles out, you have 3 times in a month where the truck is not clean. This is going to happen. To me, that's a negative incentive. Rather, I would like to say, well, if you've got 95% compliance on our daily checklists, this will happen. That's a positive aspect. That's incentivizing someone to do their job, not scaring somebody into doing their job. And that's kind of just where I'm getting at. I don't think we need to discuss it more than that. It's just, I'm very big on semantics, and I'm very big on direction of messaging. And this is a really, really big, important area where we might be able to take a look at ourselves in the mirror and assess whether we're positively incentivizing people or whether we're negatively incentivizing them by kind of punitively hurting them, either in commissions or in advancement, or even just the culture of the or else. Thanks, Dick.
Thanks, Bill. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because the entire concept of developing an ultra high performing marketing team is something that I work with clients every single week, and it's a long-term process. Not always can you, in a week or 2 or 3, turn a marketer into an ultra high performer. But I will tell you, first, you must know who your real client is. And you need to identify the traits that make a really good client. And you've got to make it easy for that client to do business with you. And so doing your intel, doing your research, doing your homework, as I am always harping on, is important for you to do that with your prospects and your clients. Second, put short-term and long-term goals in writing. You can't just have them in your head. They've got to be in writing, and there should be a series of long-term goals, and then those long-term goals should be broken down into a series of short-term goals. They've got to be reasonable. They've got to be doable. But you should also, as a marketer, be stretching outside of your comfort zone. Not a long ways. You're not going to stick your neck out so far that when it goes wrong, you get it cut off. But you're going to reach a little bit. You're going to stretch a little bit. Because if you don't step out of your comfort zone, you don't grow, and your customer doesn't grow either. And here are some, I've heard them all, believe me, over the last 25 years, I've heard them all, but I can tell you, oh, by the way, a few of them I actually used early on in my marketing career. But excuses are common, but don't let your marketer have these excuses. They'll tell you things like, this is a bad time of the year, or with all the holidays, people just don't want to refer us right now. They don't want to deal with that. Or it's been too rainy, or too hot, or too cold, or too stormy, or too windy, or too snowy. Those are bogus excuses. The economy is bad right now. Oh my gosh, back in like 2008, 2009, 2010, I heard this every single day. It's like Really? But yet you can get past all of that. I have also heard in more recent past, including yesterday with one of my marketers, the pandemic has killed all of my opportunities. And one of those conversations came from a marketer who was claiming that all of the insurance agents' offices, or most of them, were closed permanently or closed to marketers, and they could no longer visit. And so the excuse was, well, I only got one referral last week because the pandemic has killed my opportunities. Or something that's been happening the last couple weeks and will continue on this summer is the excuse people are focused on vacations. We hear that all the way up through August. Or then we hear school is starting. People are busy dealing with that. Here in Florida, school starts, my grandchildren start school like mid-August, August 15th, 16th, 17th. And so soon we'll start hearing about the VAT. Or there just continues to be a massive list of month after month junk excuses. As an owner, put it in writing, and we suggest using a whiteboard in the office. And that's, yeah, sure, it's a little bit old fashioned, but I have a client here in Florida who actually has a 42-inch flat screen up on the wall in the office, and it's tied to a computer that's always live on an Excel spreadsheet, and it's presented up on the board, up on the wall on a flat screen, what their targets are, what their numbers are, what their expectations are, and it's right there for all to see. And so all their marketing people, all their salespeople, their staff are all being held accountable. It's not really about how many visits or touches you have each day, although you ought to be striving for 10 to 15. The fact is that spinning your wheels just to stay busy is not an effective, ultra high performing strategy. And you should not be afraid to repeat the mantra, as long as you have the right mantra or the right words to repeat. You should not be afraid to repeat that over and over and over again, because reputation puts you top of mind. That's why politicians do it. Billy?
Thank you, Dick. The homeowner won't help me deal with his adjuster. What can I do to change this? The answer to this one is going to sound eerily similar. You heard me talking about it about 25 minutes ago when it came to how we are supposed to address self-paid jobs. You have to start this at the beginning. Your salesman has to let the homeowner know that they need to be part of the process. Now, I'm not going to go so far as to be one of those guys who's on one of those Facebook chat rooms is going to say, we don't deal with the insurance company, the heck with them, the owner pays us, or we lien the property. Because that all sounds great in theory, but in reality, most of our companies get more than half of their business from lead sources. So you could upset any homeowner by liening their property once, but that lead source is going to be upset and they're going to stop giving you business. And for some companies, we're talking about hundreds of jobs a year from an individual lead source. That's just not realistic. So the reality is we do need to work with the insurance companies from time to time in moving our invoice through their process and collecting the payment. I'm not saying that we don't use the homeowner at all. Quite the contrary, the homeowner has to be part of that process. But remember, what's the experience that a homeowner has in dealing with insurance? The average homeowner has a loss every 25 or 26 years in their home that requires their insurance company to get involved. So that's not a frequent thing. But most people go see their doctor every year. either for wellness checks or because they have some sort of ongoing treatment that's going on. When they walk into a doctor's office, what's the process there? Always think of it from their perspective. Don't think of it from our perspective. Think of it from their perspective. They walk in, if you're with some sort of a plan, you have your copay, and the doctor never ever talks to you again about your insurance. They have a whole process set up on how they address getting paid from your insurance company for the work that they did. You're out of it. Well, guess what, guys? That's what the insurance company wants to have happen in our industry, but that's not the reality right now. When we talk to insurance companies, we're doing it as a service to the homeowner, because ultimately they're the ones with the contract, and the way it works is they get reimbursed for fair and reasonable incurred costs. Our invoices and incurred costs. But like I said just now, we assist the homeowner navigating through this insurance process because we do it all the time and they do it once every 25 years. What that means is that we have to tell them up front. They need to make sure they understand they are part of this process. This isn't like going to the collision shop after you get a car accident or going to your primary care physician. This is totally different. This is them having to be an active part of collecting the money. How can they do that? Well, when you invoice, you're invoicing the homeowner. You instruct the homeowner to send your invoice to the adjuster. Then every communication you have with the adjuster on behalf of the homeowner, you must include the homeowner on that. Okay. If you explain that up front, 95% of the time, the homeowner is going to understand they need to be part of the process. They need to be available to be on a call, because we should never be talking to an adjuster around the homeowner. They should always be on the phone. When we're communicating by email, everybody should be included. All parties should be part of those emails. We prefer emails with adjusters over phone conversations because we now have documentation. Okay. Finally, when the adjuster has issues, you want to make sure that the homeowner understands those issues. If you've done a really good job explaining this entire process up front, the homeowner is going to understand, oh, by the way, the adjuster is going to say they're not going to pay for that air scrubber that I put into your house because your son has asthma and you told me that he's immunocompromised. The adjuster is going to tell us no. So I want you to be able to defend the fact that we did that. Guess what's going to happen? 99 times out of 100, the adjuster is going to go ahead and pay for it because the homeowner is acting as your advocate. So we need to make sure the homeowner understands upfront. Now, let's say the homeowner understands upfront, and for whatever reason, the homeowner is becoming very, very, let's just say, obstinate about not helping us. Well, we still always have those tools in our quiver, as long as we've done everything properly and documented everything, that if they don't want to help us, then we then have the ability to threaten to lien and then to follow through with a mechanic's lien or a contractor's lien on their home, as long as we do everything in the proper period of time. That doesn't make you a bad guy at that point. My only word of advice, make sure your lead source understands this dynamic well in advance. Don't let your lead source get a call from the homeowner saying, what kind of jerk did you introduce me to? Out of the blue, that idiot just leaned my house and now my credit's all screwed up. Let's make sure that the lead source, that plumber, knows right away. You understand, Joe, that we always ask the homeowners to be part of helping collect our money. And it just, Mrs. Smith just doesn't seem to understand. Maybe they can intercede on your behalf and get them to help out before it gets to that point. So let's just start at the beginning again. I know this sounds redundant, but I'm really stressing how important those first few hours are once you get that lead. Thanks, Dick.
Thank you. Thanks, Billy. I'm going to click to the next screen here. There we go. What's interesting is that this next question really starts back at what you just said, that first couple hours or that first part of engagement. And so your sales estimator or your project manager or whatever title you actually give them starts when the call comes in. If it's the homeowner calling, they have to be reassured that they have actually reached a qualified and competent company. So your intake form and the people answering that phone and handling those initial questions and that initial intake, they need to ask the right questions and they need to provide the best reassurances. So, starting right initially with that phone call, the tone of voice matters. If the person answering the phone sounds like they're chewing bubble gum and they're from the valley and they could care less about the call, that's a problem. What you say matters and how you say it matters. Those that are most successful are great at conveying or demonstrating by words or sounds or tone of voice, demonstrating empathy. But you also have to demonstrate urgency. And so improving your closing ratio starts at the initial phone call from the homeowner or business person into your business. And, there should be the reassurance that they're going to send somebody out, they're going to inspect it, they're going to assess it, they're going to provide that homeowner with a timeline for recovery as best you can. They're going to provide a scope. And even some of you who are really good at this, your sales estimator or project manager is going to provide an actual estimate right then and there. They expect, the homeowner expects you to help them and expects you to help them quickly. And they expect the concept of urgency. Very few homeowners are going to say, oh, no worry, take your time. Whenever it's done, it's done. That's not how they are thinking. That's not how they react. Okay. You really want to become their ambulance. The ambulance doesn't just meander over to your house when you need some ambulance. They don't just smoke the last 2 drags of their cigarette and then get out of the van and then grab their gurney and come on in. They treat it with urgency. They treat it like it should be treated, and that's like a real functioning ambulance. Remember, you're there to help them get back to normal. So when you ask for permission on things that they're going to say yes, what you're doing is you're giving them the illusion of control. Okay? You want to give them the illusion of control. They want to feel like they are making the decisions and you're just giving them 2 or 3 choices, but you're going to give them 2 or 3 choices that one of the 3 is the right one and a good one for you. You also need to be aware that we have a full training program on how you can teach project managers, sales estimators to do a better job of demonstrating empathy, of demonstrating the right questions, of giving the right options to the homeowner, because the closing ratio should be between 70 and 75%. We have many marketers who their company is getting 75% closing ratio, and that's really important. Thanks, Bill.
Thank you, Dick. And just for bragging purposes, we actually work with one company, and one of their salesmen for the year has been out on 101 leads so far this year, and he's closing at 90%. So that's obviously a lot of extra dollars in that company's pocket. Our final question today is a very timely question because I'm sure every single owner on this webinar is receiving weekly emails or phone calls. When do I know it's the right time to sell my company? I'm going to give you a logical answer, but first I'm going to give you an emotional answer. When you find that no matter how successful your company is, it's becoming more and more difficult to go to the office every day and keep a smile on your face, it's time to sell, regardless of what the value is. Owning a company takes on a lot of different aspects. Obviously, the financial burden, the obligations to all the families of your workers. Those are very, very serious, strong obligations. Those are burdens that most business owners don't realize till they're in it. And it's the thing that separates successful business owners from unsuccessful business owners. Those are very difficult sometimes to manage. If you're not walking in with a positive mindset, they become almost impossible to manage and they could create a real downfall. So emotionally, if you're not fully vested in owning your company, I really suggest that you should probably entertain finding somebody to sell it for you. You probably wouldn't even be the best salesman for your own company. But let's just say everything's going great. And in the back of your head, you think at some point, you probably will get that Godfather line where you'll get an offer that you can't refuse. So how do you know when that right time comes? Generally speaking, you'd like to have 3 solid years of small but steady growth. And again, I'm giving you the Wall Street perspective. What I mean by that is don't have your previous 3 years kind of look like a roller coaster where you had a monster year and then a year that where you might have even broken even or lost a little money, but then you rebounded the next year. Companies that are buying other companies, that's not valuable to them. The seesaw, the yo-yo effect, as they call it in companies, shows some underlying instability. Companies that are buying other companies are looking for stability where they can take good value in what you're showing them, come up with something that is worth paying for, understanding that once they get themselves in your business, they'll find small little areas that they'll actually be able to do better in. That's a general viewpoint. So you want to have 3 years of slow, steady growth. And when I say slow, steady, it's because the second thing you want to have is you want to have good cash flows in your company. So if you're a company that went from $1 million to 3 million to 6 million in 3-year span, that's not good, slow, steady growth. That's explosive growth. And I can promise that a lot of that growth came at the expense of cash flow. There's a good chance you haven't taken any money out in 3 years if you've grown that much, or even worse, you've probably put some money in to help handle the stresses of growing at that speed. That's not a good thing for companies who are buying as well. They want to see that you've had steady cash the entire time. Why is that? Because once they buy you, they don't want to have to put in extra cash. They want to just use their purchase cash as the only money they ever put in. And they want your company to be a spigot that starts pouring cash back out to them on day one. So those are 2 really important aspects. Make sure you have slow, steady growth and make sure you have cash flow. Those are really good. The third thing that you need to make sure that you have before you sell your company is you need to have your company be basically driven by processes. If your company is not driven by processes and or tick sheets, it's not going to work. You need to make sure that your company has everything being run by processes, not by people. If you sit there and say, I've got a great company because I've got 2 great marketers and I've got a great salesman and I've got a great PM. You haven't answered my question as to whether they're great because you have a great process that they're following, or are they just great individuals? It's important to buy companies with good individuals, but you definitely don't want to buy companies that have good individuals without a process. So companies that are buying you are going to look at that and they're going to say, well, What happens if I buy your company and Joe, your general manager, decides he was only there because of you and he leaves tomorrow? I just bought an asset that's worth less tomorrow than it was today when I bought it. They want to buy a company that has really good processes, that so that even if Joe leaves, they could find a capable person in a short period of time that could do as well, if not better than Joe. That's important to every company. Very, very important. Hope you guys understand that. Other than that, those are the main times when you know it's a right time to sell. The last thing I'll say about right time is don't sell if you're not ready to leave. A lot of companies used to buy and make you stay on for 3 to 5 years. If you are a company that I just described, you're not going to have the opportunity to stay on for 3 to 5 years. Some guys are like, I'll just take the money off the table and I'll still stick around. I'll get a nice salary. Well, if you're a company that I described, you're going to get a nice chunk up front, but you're not going to be asked to stay around. That trend is changing. You may have heard something 5-10 years ago where they keep you on as a partner. That trend is changing, guys. They want to buy a process. They want to buy like I said before, a faucet that spits money out. They really don't want you around. You're overhead to them once they buy you. So understand that. Be ready to say, I'm ready to move on to the next chapter in my life. Okay. So we'll repeat it one more time. Slow, steady growth over a 3-year period, good cash flow, and really good processes. Thanks, Dick.
Thank you, Bill. So we've spent just about an hour. Thank you for attending the Q&A for April for the CREST Network. You're welcome to join us every month for the Q&A. We always have really cool questions that come up during the month, and we try to address them. Because of time constraints, we usually limit that to 6 to 8 questions every time. I hope you will check out crestlibrary.com. We have a massive library of videos and documents on there for learning on every topic from sales and marketing. It's very reasonable to join, and you can sign up and join for a month or 2 and then quit if you want to quit. So I'm Dick Wagner, and on behalf of Bill Giannone, thank you again. Bye-bye.